Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It does exist. It exists around us today. Satanic ceremonies will be happening in Britain tonight. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years.
Black magic is the philosophy of self-interest, the left-hand path. It is the pursuit of happiness, and for Aleister Crowley, it was a way of life.
In the year of the primal force and the dawn of heredity.
Referring to himself as the Beast 666, Crowley devised his own religion, Thelema, combining beliefs of sex and magic into one distinctive vision, alongside his passages of scripture, the Book of the Law.
I mean, he really did know a lot about magic. He was willing to go through an enormous amount of difficulty and pain, so to speak, to perform rituals properly. But in fact, what Crowley realized was that magic does work. And he devoted his life to it, I suppose.
When I first got a copy of the Book of the Law, I thumbed through it, and in the back, I read the comment. It was the first thing I read in the book. And the comment says, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. The study of this book is forbidden."
The Beast founded a commune in Sicily for him and his disciples to perform 6 magic rituals under the influence of hashish, cocaine, and opium.
It was the first commune of people living together who were artists. Sex is a kind of magical communion. Mussolini had kicked him out, and then they had ordered the paintings all covered with whitewash.
Crowley returned to England with a chronic heroin addiction and an infamous reputation that coined him the wickedest man in the world, until his death in 1947. But his teachings of sexual liberation and exploration of black magic began to influence a new generation.
It's stimulating, mind-expanding, safer to use than alcohol. It's the in thing, marijuana.
Crowley's message about sexual freedom, about social freedom, about challenging authority very much resonated at that time. A lot of people in the late 60s and early 70s very much embraced Crowley and his message. It was a very good fit.
There were so many sides to a story in the 70s. I fell into the trap of the black magic, just the Crowleyism of the times. It was a significant part of that middle point of the 70s, and I really got completely disoriented by all that. It was an awful, dreadful period for me.
And then we started to write doomy music, we used to call it. Of this death music, this doom music. It's all this demonic devil stuff. I can see my mother and my father look at each other and go in amazement. Ozzy, are you sure you're just only drinking the occasional beer here?
I think one of the most exciting things about the music of the 70s was it was a hybrid of what came before it, but it staked its own territory. What Zeppelin was doing was taking blues and pumping it up on steroids and doing something that changed the nature of the beast.
Guitarist Jimmy Page had a fascination with occultism and black magic. Led Zeppelin soon became intoxicated with Aleister Crowley and his teachings. Page became particularly involved, buying Crowley's previous house.
He was deeply involved in the occult, or deeply interested perhaps, and he had the money and the time to buy into it, and he apparently had a fantastic, maybe still has, fantastic collection of Crowley memorabilia.
I was very interested actually in Eastern and Western mysticism, and I spent time reading and researching when I was younger.
The band made numerous references to Crowley and their music. First editions of the 1970 album Zeppelin III have Crowley's phrases inscribed on vinyl. In 1972, Page agreed to collaborate with Kenneth Anger, a fellow Magick practitioner, on the soundtrack for Lucifer Rising, a film depicting satanic rituals and ceremonies. When the rock star's dedication began to wane, the relationship fell apart, leading to a tempestuous argument in 1975. Anger publicly alluded to Page's drug addiction, arguing it was that of Jekyll and Hyde.
He had a problem with heroin, and that was interfering with his work. I tried to help him get over it because it was really interfering with his life.
It was then that the filmmaker laid a curse on Led Zeppelin, and their luck began to change.
And we said, let's go to Europe. We started driving north, and that's where I had the car wreck. My foot came off and my arm went spinning round and round. But I learned a lot. I learned how valuable life really is.
Before a show in New Orleans, the singer received news that his son had passed away.
Because it's been quite a long time, Robert, since the last album. Why has it been so long?
We've been involved in a lot of things. We've been coming to a lot of conclusions and decisions and starting the record company off, you know.
John, we've been watching that bit film there, and you do some really it must have taken you years to learn to play like that, did it?
Not really.
Yeah. The weather's turned out nice again, Johnny.
So?
Yeah.
John Bonham found dead in bed yesterday in London at the home of the group's guitarist, Jimmy Page.
By 1980, 2 deaths had occurred, John Bonham and Led Zeppelin.
Could possibly do it without playing with the other guys, you know. It's part of my charisma is, you know, is reliant on the other 3, you know, and the same with everybody else, you know. We really get off on playing together.
What would you define being a Satanist as?
Worship of themselves. You're worshiping yourself when you worship Satan. I'm basically a free thinker. Whatever anybody wants to do, they can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt other people.
I live by myself, you know. I live by my own values and all that, morals.
We're a non-theistic religion in opposition to arbitrary authority. A lot more people seem to understand what we're doing and embrace it, and a lot more people get more violently opposed to what we're doing.
Mr. Crowley has been instrumental throughout music for before I was born, you know what I mean? Understanding why he's been so, you know, relevant and you know, influential in music culture, you know, my album is called Do What Thou Wilt.
I'm very much into philosophy, a lot of different philosophers that I've read over the years, like Aleister Crowley.
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 Aleister Crowley.